The infinitive phrase is our next phrase we're going to look at, and these are non-finite forms of the verb, which means that they do not have any tense on them. So whenever you see something called an infinitive verb, you're looking at the bare form, like to be, to eat, to die, to lie, to sleep, things like that. So here are some examples. They wanted me to succeed. So to succeed is going to be an example of an infinitive phrase. It is headed by the infinitive to, and then it is followed by a verb. So in this case, it would be the intransitive verb succeed. We can also have the case where we have omitted infinitives, and this usually happens with VC verbs like let or me. So in this case, it's really like saying, my friends let me to show their relatives around town, but when we say to show, it sounds awkward. You might hear this said by second language English speakers, just because of the way they learn the grammar and because these are very unique exceptions. So we can have an infinitive phrase like that. So to show their relatives around town would be another example of an infinitive phrase. Show their relatives around town. So that's going to be a transitive verb, and it's going to not have any infinitive before it. So we don't have an in to, so we don't have an infinitive label. But that is headed, that is an infinitive phrase, and we'll show how to do that in terms of a diagram. So infinitive phrases generally take on the same types of functions and positions as noun phrases or adverb phrases. So we can compare a lot of these to just regular noun phrases. So for example, we can have a sentence that says, my goal is this, and that would be the top tree above. So my goal is this. My goal is the subject, is a be verb, and then this would be a predicate nominal noun phrase. So when we have an infinitive phrase there instead, it's still going to be in exactly the same position. We're just going to get a little bit more out of it. So if we take a look at the second sentence here, which is the bottom diagram, what do we see that's different? Well, we see this infinitive phrase. But that infinitive phrase is occurring in exactly the same position as the noun phrase would be, and it has the same function. So we can do this with predicate nominals. My goal is this. My goal is to learn many things. We can do this with subjects. So we can say this is quite fun, but we can replace this with an infinitive phrase. To study every day is quite fun. What else can we do? Well, we have a direct object. I decided this, so I decided something. Or I decided to pursue a higher degree. So we can even use a direct object here. Okay, it can be an object complement as well. So let's say that we have a sentence like they considered me this. So like they considered me to be something. So they considered me happy, they considered me depressed. Well, instead we can say they considered me to be a pain. So here we have another infinitive phrase, and this one is acting as an object complement. So the last one it can be is an adverbial. So you can think of any adverbial infinitive phrase as being like an in order to phrase without having an order in front. So they went outside in order to get some fresh air, or they went outside to get some fresh air. So this is an infinitive phrase. We see the infinitive to up front. We see the verb coming after, so the transitive verb, and then we see the noun phrase direct object after that. But that whole thing is a modifier, so you can move it around. So the sentence is diagrammed to the right. They went outside to get some fresh air. But of course, we can move this all the way to say the front of the sentence. To get some fresh air, they went outside. So Chloe is attending art classes to improve her skills. You could say Chloe is attending her art classes in order to improve her skills. So you could put that in order there to show that it is an adverbial. And we could also move it around. So to improve her skills, Chloe is attending art classes. All right, so next time we're going to take a look inside the infinitive phrase and their internal structure. So let's take a look inside the infinitive phrase. So the sentence we're looking at is my goal is to learn many things, and we saw this in its bare form previously. Just to learn many things is like a big triangle with no internal structure. But let's take a look inside the infinitive phrase. What do we see? So inside the infinitive phrase, we're always going to see the infinitive to if it exists. If it doesn't exist, we will cover that in a later subsection. Inside that infinitive phrase, it is going to take a verb phrase as its complement because that is what is hosting the transitive verb. Now, this is not always a verb phrase because it can take any predicate. So it could be a perfect phrase, a progressive phrase, a passive phrase coming up. And then we continue the structure as normal. So we know learn is a transitive verb, so it's going to take a direct object, in this case, many things. So inside the structure, we're basically just building a new predicate. We have the infinitive to, and then we're building a new predicate without any tense in it. So that was the first example. The second example I have is the subject example. To study every day is fun. So instead of saying this is fun, where you have an NP subject and then it's just saying this, instead what we can do is we can make a whole infinitive phrase. So to study every day is fun. So here's what we have. We have the infinitive to, which is taking an intransitive verb study as its complement under the VP, and then every day is an adverbial that describes how often the studying is happening. So once you get inside the structure, again, it's just a regular predicate that you're used to building, just like in your regular simple declarative sentences without any infinitive phrases. Okay, finally, number 3, so we required him to complain. So this is a VC verb, so we required, and then him equals to complain. So him is the one doing the complaining. That's why we have a direct object and object complement. But inside the infinitive phrase, we see the exact same thing as always. We see the infinitive to under the infinitive phrase, and that's going to take a verb phrase or any predicate as its complement. And in this case, it's the intransitive verb complain. So with that being said, let's try to draw some of these structures. So you don't have to draw the parts that are not underlined, just the beginning. So whatever's introducing the infinitive phrase and the infinitive phrase itself. I will go over the answers now. So pause the video, try it yourself. And now let's see how this works. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste some of these sentences into new pages. The bottom, stretch them out, and then build some sentences. So this is a little stretched. I want to stretch it a little bit, but not too much. Okay, so I'm just going to label some categories here. So want is going to be a transitive verb. To is going to be our infinitive to because it's introducing what you're studying. And this is a transitive verb studying because you're saying what you're studying. So arts is a noun and is a coordinative conjunction, and crafts is a noun as well. So let's deal with arts and crafts first because this is the thing you're studying. So this is going to be a noun phrase and a noun phrase, and these two coordinative conjunctions is going to combine to make a bigger noun phrase. Now, this transitive verb is going to be hosted by a verb phrase, which means that this compound noun phrase is the direct object. Now, the infinitive is going to introduce that verb phrase, and want is going to be the VP that takes the infinitive phrase as its complement. But what is the function of that infinitive phrase? Well, it's the direct object since you want something. You want to study arts and crafts. So that's the structure for the first sentence. Let's take a look at the structure for the second sentence. And you might notice something a little bit different here compared to the other functions that we've seen. So let's set this up. It is difficult to find help. So difficult is an adjective. To find is going to be an infinitive plus a verb, and it's going to be finding help. You're finding something, so help is the noun phrase, direct object. So this is going to be a verb phrase with a transitive verb that takes help as the direct object. The infinitive is going to build an infinitive phrase, and the adjective is going to build up with its own adjective phrase that takes the infinitive phrase as a complement. So what is difficult? It is difficult to find help. To find help is difficult. So you're describing the act of difficulty. Now, we call these complements in this case, and we don't actually label them in our trees. But you may see other resources online or other grammar books or syntax books calling them complements, and they might even be very specific and they say it's a complement to an adjective. But we typically leave them unlabeled. The final one. The woman to be queen is Kim. Congratulations, Kim. You have a future ahead of you. So let's see what this is. And we're going to see something a little bit different here too. So woman is a noun. To be queen, we have an infinitive plus a be verb. And then we have queen. So this is a noun. We're not actually going to do is Kim here because then we would have to do the at the beginning. So let's just focus on this here. So woman to be queen. We have a similar situation to before. We have a noun phrase, and then the to be queen is describing the noun phrase. So it's going to take an infinitive phrase. It's going to be a complement. We're not going to label any function on it. So that's going to go down to the infinitive phrase. It's going to take a verb phrase as a complement, picks up be, and then we have a noun phrase connecting to the noun queen. And because this is a be verb, we have a predicate nominal as the function of the noun phrase. So that's the internal structure of infinitive phrases. Hopefully you're able to draw them. There's nothing too much different that's coming out of these. And we can finally have a nice full structure here. So for the infinitive phrase, we still have the gerund on the right to do, but we now have to be a person sets back eating every snack. So to is an infinitive, making an infinitive phrase subject. Infinitive phrases can also be modified by aspects and take on those meanings. So I just want to show them as examples and show how to draw them if we do have to do them in a structure. So an example of a perfect infinitive phrase would be, I prefer to have beaten all my opponents before the match. So we see the infinitive, we see the perfect, and then we see the transitive verb beaten after with that en past participle on it. We can have progressive infinitive phrases. So he seems to be participating in his community. So we have the infinitive phrase, we have the progressive, and then we have the intransitive verb participating with that ing suffix on it. And we can also combine them with perfect progressive, and it's going to follow the same order as what we would expect. So we have the infinitive, we have the perfect have, we have the progressive been with that en perfect suffix on it, and then we have the intransitive verb working, which has that ing on it. So we can have our aspects in our infinitive phrases. So how we would do this is what you would expect. So to have beaten all my opponents, what to would take instead of a VP as a complement is a perfect phrase. So to have beaten all my opponents. Now we have that perfect phrase, verb phrase chain going on. If we have the sentence to be participating in his community is fun, then to is going to take a progressive phrase and a verb phrase to be participating. Once again, that progressive phrase, verb phrase chain that we saw. So given that, try to draw the structure to have been working so hard without rewards. And in fact, just draw the structure for to have been working. So let's see what the answer would be here. So to have been working. I won't make a new slide this time because we're only dealing with 4 words. So to have been working. And we know what the labels for these are. It's going to be an infinitive, it's going to be a perfect, it's going to be a progressive, and then it's going to be an intransitive word, an intransitive verb, so hard without rewards. So working is a VP, progressive takes a progressive phrase and a VP as a complement. The perfect builds into a perfect phrase that takes the progressive phrase as a complement, and the infinitive phrase builds in to an infinitive phrase that takes the perfect phrase as a complement. So once again, we're just doing that verb chain inside the infinitive phrase, and we get the same thing that we have before. Okay, now what happens when we see infinitive phrases without the to that occurs before the verb? So there are some verbs that just do not allow to appear. So my girlfriend let me eat her dessert. It would be odd if we said my girlfriend let me to eat her dessert, although as an English speaker, we'd understand what was trying to be said. So really all of these cases have these to's in front of them that cannot be said. And how do we know it's direct object and object complement? Well, we can use that equal. So my girlfriend let me eat her dessert. So me is the one eating her dessert. Gary had his parents negotiate the price. So his parents equal the ones negotiating the price. The test made everyone sob. Everyone equals sobbing. So this is how we say the direct object and object complement. And because there is no tense, we know that it is in its infinitive form. So that's why we can posit that there's an infinitive before it that just isn't pronounced. So what does this look like? Well, it doesn't look any different than what we've been doing so far. So this is my girlfriend let me eat her desserts. Now, I just want to focus in on the infinitive phrase here. Now, everything is exactly the same as before, but in this case, under the infinitive, we simply say it's empty. So the category is still there, but nothing can be pronounced. So any sort of pronunciation would be unacceptable in that case. Okay, what about Steve made his parents negotiate the price? We see the same thing here inside the infinitive phrase. Negotiate the price is still a verb phrase with a noun phrase direct object, but the infinitive phrase here, the object complement, has an infinitive with nothing in it. So the two is just not pronounced. So with that being said, here we have a sentence: to find a goldfish makes you achieve amazing luck. I want you to find and label all of the categories. I want you to find all the infinitive phrases and label their functions as well. So pause the video, try that, and now let's go over the solution. So I am going to use the power of technology to not do a new page, but instead to paste the same thing on top of what already exists and make it bigger. So to find a goldfish. So to find, here we're going to have an infinitive and a transitive verb. A goldfish is an indefinite determiner. Goldfish is noun. And then makes you achieve amazing luck. So we got to be careful here because this is like an equals. Makes you to achieve amazing luck. So we do have a VC verb here. You is going to be the personal pronoun, and then we're going to have an infinitive phrase with achieve amazing luck. So you're achieving something, so it's a transitive verb. Amazing is an adjective, and luck is a noun. So those are our categories. In terms of the infinitive phrase, we have to find a goldfish. So this is an infinitive phrase, and this is acting as the subject in this case. Because this is like, this makes you achieve amazing luck. To find a goldfish makes you achieve amazing luck. We also have another infinitive phrase on achieve amazing luck. It's another infinitive phrase acting as an object complement to the VC here. And it just has an invisible to in front of it. So there's no actual infinitive in this case. But that's infinitive phrases. Hopefully you're able to get those. We're going to see a little bit more infinitive phrases later, but for the most part, we have now discussed them in their entirety.